Please hit like, share, and subscribe. Now enjoy the Practical Guitarist podcast. So what the hell are we going to talk about today?
I don't even know, man. I don't even know. I got stuff.
I got to tell you, I don't have a lot to talk about.
I got stuff. I mean, I'm forcing myself to write music like on a weekly basis right now.
Yep.
And mostly to fuel the stream, but I went and I watched a video on like basic chord progressions. And I think I want to talk about it because it's theory stuff, but it's not like super hard to grasp. But the funny part about it is like, even I know this stuff. Like I'm not an idiot. And so I rewatched basically stuff that I've known for a long time. And you always get something out of it, you know, like, and I got a lot out of it. There was a couple of things in fact, I have notes I took on it. Just to remind myself while I was working on this piece of music. So
I need to buy beard oil to bring. Look at this piece right here. It's like, I don't know if I want to pull it or if I want to trim it or just bring it in. I don't know. Anyway, so that's going to bother me the whole podcast. Now I'm looking at this one piece of hair right here.
Random ass shit growing here. Like, cause I haven't bought shaving cream in months, so I'm not even in any hurry. So I'm just like, fuck it.
No. So I don't care. So I want to talk about, there's a channel you found. I just want to talk about, there's a channel, there's a guy, he's got budget gear. He's got nothing but budget gear. I actually reached out to him and talked to him, personally. And, his name is John, and he's got a channel, a YouTube channel. Let me bring this up real quick and look at it. It is called, something about, you found it. He had a guitar.
I can look it up real quick because he's commented on our last video actually.
Yep. Oh yeah, that's
right. Overdrive Guitar Channel.
That's it. So the Overdrive Guitar Channel. His name is John. For those of you who are into budget gear, that's what John is doing. He's using believe it or not, his 2 guitars that he's using right now, and it's because of financial reasons and hardship that COVID caused. He's got because he had a nice Strat. I asked him, I said, "Where's your Strat?" He goes, "I had to sell it to cover some stuff that happened, you know." So got into a discussion with him. He's nice, really nice guy. He has got a a Squire?
He's got an Affinity.
Squire Telecaster, and he's got a Geo Ibanez, and that's it. And he's got a Katana that he's running directly into the board. And remember when I said I think I see him running two laptops. One is capturing the output of the Katana, and the other one captures his lavalier. So then he splices the 2 things together and you puts the video together like we do, and boom, done. But I thought it was interesting because I told him, I said, look, you know, you're a budget thing. That's what people are looking at that right now. People have a definitive interest in channels that are doing budget guitar stuff. I mean, I sit here, I was on, not on Robert's podcast this weekend, but chatting in Robert's weekly live thing. And he said, you could buy a blah, blah amp if you just sold one of those guitars, find you. And I said, I'm not selling one of those guitars. I will wait and I will buy one. But I don't remember if it was JCM 900 or whatever, or 800. And I know I want to get a JCM. I mean, that's in my future. But I thought to myself, I said, you know, I'm not selling these. That's not going to happen. So that's why I'm sitting on top of what I've got. But anyway, So if you guys want to go out, give him a shout and give him a like. He's a small channel, smaller. When I can say it's a small channel, it's a really small channel. But he's up and coming, and he does. The reason I thought of it was because you were talking about the basic stuff, and he does a lot of the instructional basic stuff. So it's good.
Yeah, seems like a good guy. Seems like he's got a nice channel. Yep. If you're into that kind of thing, like I wouldn't say he's like Guitar Max, but he's in that ballpark of covering that end of the market, and it's definitely worth a watch. So
yeah, I mean, the one thing about and of course we are not saying anything negative about Guitar Max. He's a nice guy, but the one thing that Guitar Max has is a budget, and he can go get this guitar. He can buy a Firefly, then buy a I know that's not a lot of money, but still, he's able to buy a Firefly, and then able to go out and buy another one, and then able to go out and buy a Chensei, and then able to go out and buy another guitar. Yeah. And then after a while, they're shipping them to him, and so he can get that, and nothing negative about that at all. I think that. When it comes to John, completely different thing. He's got two guitars, and that's what he's got until COVID's over. And I told him, when COVID's over, give me a shout. We'll see what we can find for you, because he needs to find one good guitar, even if it's just a made in Mexico Strat. It's something that would help him out a bit. He had a
dust on my lens. Sorry,
that's cool. All right. So David has got a new. I'm actually using my old camera. I could use my new camera, but David's got an old camera.
Dude, new camera. It still looks to me like there's dust on the lens. I don't know if you can see it. There's a little speck, like right in the middle of my forehead right now.
Yep. But that's all right. That's all right. David's going to get the dust off.
It's gotta happen.
But yeah, and his signal froze up. He probably did something to the camera. But there he goes. There he is. He switched cameras for a second.
Nope. It'll be back. There you go.
Here he comes. There it is. All right, so
it's still there. Oh,
maybe that's on your. Well, no, that's on your screen, because I don't see anything.
So it's on my screen. All right,
I think so.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Because there's nothing on your head now. Nothing that doesn't move. Like there's a freckle like above this eye, but that's normal.
Yeah, I can't even get the position back where it was. All right.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay.
You're back.
God.
You're close enough.
The nightmare. Well, anybody who's used a mirrorless or DSLR camera, this is why I'm so anal about this. You got to pay to get them cleaned when the stuff gets on the sensor. You can't do it yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there are products, but it's like adjusting your neck the first time.
Yeah.
So, anyway, it's not. I haven't even had the lens off the body since I installed it, so it's probably fine. But anyway, definitely hit up his channel, Overdrive Guitar Channel, and Jim, I think it would be kind of cool if we could hook him up with something that's decent for a little amount of money if we find the right deal. So
yep, that's what I'm thinking. So let's talk. I obviously did. We talked about the Mustaine thing during when Robert was on here. I don't know if I got that far in a podcast. So folks, if you listened to the podcast, the part 1 just kind of went.
Yeah, he didn't add any like special flavor to the podcast equivalent. It just kind of cut off in the middle.
Matter of fact, I think it was right in the middle of a word.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was terrible editing. The editor needs to be fired. But for those of you listening, I appreciate the listen. It did say part 1 and part 2 coming. So
yeah,
but not everybody reads. So
including us.
Well, yeah, and unfortunately, you wouldn't hear until the end of the second part where we go, oh yeah, this is long. We'll go ahead and cut it and edit it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that happens. So yeah. So I mean, there's really Brian Wampler released a new Rat.
Yeah, I saw that. I have refused to watch the video because I probably want to buy it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I watched 3 videos. And after the second video, which I think the first one I watched was Wampler.
Yeah.
And then somebody else. I want to say it might have been one of the sales channels, like Anderton's or
Anderton, something
somebody.
like
But
that.
anyway, instantly I was like, well, I want one of those. And then Anderton's came out, CME, which is over by you, came out with a new SG line, 5 new colors. And they're 61s, and I thought, well, who cares? It's just different colors. No, they went ahead and did some different stuff to it.
Like what they do?
Well, they put instead of the 61 type things, they put in the T pickups. Which, yeah, I've got the T's. That's what's in the 335. Those who aren't watching.
For whatever reason, CME seems to really want to be like the next Wildwood in terms of the Gibson output, and they've been doing like some custom Gibson stuff for a while. They had the 70s inlay SG like for a while that was kind of basically a 70s SG before, Gibson decided to start looking at that as a potential option for them to actually make. And I don't know. I just feel like they're trying really hard to do something very specific. And I sort of feel like they're kind of missing their mark because they're a boutique store first and foremost and a vintage store. And it's like they want to become a Sweetwater or something and actually have like this online sales thing. In order for them to do that, they need to start selling new guitars in order to make that happen.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and they were Reverb, right? Wasn't that who owned Reverb?
Well, so same owner. They were sister companies.
Yeah.
And they're actually Reverb. The offices are right across the street. When you go into Chicago Music Exchange, when you walk out, you can see across the street. There's the Reverb sign in the building. And,
that's cool. Till they move it overseas.
I don't. So that's another weird thing. Is like I don't know where Chicago Music Exchange's distribution facility is because they do a lot of online business now. And they ain't going out of the store. I mean, the store's a big store, but they don't have like a warehouse space in that store. At least not to my knowledge. So, Anyway,
that's interesting. I don't. I've never been out there. I'd love to come out and see it.
Yeah, it's a cool place. I will warn you, don't bring money because you'll end up spending all of it. I have gone in there and dropped $1,000 on pedals or close to it before.
Yeah,
they have pretty much every pedal you can possibly shake a stick at, and most amps. Yeah. And even the vintage stuff, like, oh, you want a 60s deluxe reverb? Like, they'll have one. They'll have a couple probably. So
yeah,
it's that kind of
I don't need that. I don't need that. I don't need that positivity in my life right now. Moving right along. I have to put a tire on my car right now, and tire for that car is like $225. So,
I know. That's why I sold my Passat, because I saw the tire bill before I actually had the tire bill, and I was like, "Oh my god, you're crazy!" I was like, "I'm not spending an extra $1,000 on tires. You're absolutely nuts."
Well, that's just it. So these tires don't have that much mileage on them. But one of my tires has sprung a leak. And I know good gosh darn well, because of the type of tire it is, they're not going to patch it.
Right. So any of the German cars have like a lower profile tire, and they're the only company that's using that tire. It's always that way, and they're always like $240 a piece.
NTB had to order it in special. And they've only got one in the entire NTB, like in the country. National Tires and Battery. There's only one in the country, so whatever. I know
it was nice. I went right before we went to Vegas this summer. I took my Escape over to the NTV by us, or actually Discount Tire, and I walked in and I said, I need tires for this Escape. They looked at my car and they were like, well, we only have the Highline tire, and I'm like, well, I gotta have them. How much are they? And he gives me a quote, and it was $200 a tire, and I'm like, sold. It was the best tire they could put on there. It was like $200. I was like, sold.
Yeah, that's what I'm. So the tire itself is $178.99 plus tax, plus mounting, plus destruction of the old tire, plus whatever. So I got to do that. So so Wampler has a new pedal. That rat is that thing kicks ass. Now, does it make me want his rat? Kind of. Does it? And this is where I sat down. At first, I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll break my promise. Maybe I'll go get it. And then I said to myself, I said, you know what? Try dialing in what you got.
Yeah, you don't need a rat. You have a Marshall.
Yeah, and just go from there. So that's what I said. I was like, I've got a Marshall and the 6-channel. You can't see it, but the 6-channel thingy for it. I'm like, By the way, my SG, just in case people think, oh, the SG is not in the shot. Here he is. I just had it over here on the stand over on the side of me because I was playing it. And
I don't put my guitars behind me.
No. I mean, and that's just it, though. If people
say, don't have enough wall space.
Jim's got a guitar missing. It's right here. Well, you're actually in front of kind of a wall.
I gotta have 2 guitar space over next to me. That's where when I'm working on tracks, they hang there and I grab them. But I don't keep anything behind me. I got the wall of amplifiers over here, which is literally like blocking the closet screen. The closet doors are in the floor over there. They're going back up soon. We're just I got to remount them in the floor, so I have to screw them into concrete. The base plates.
I thought those screens were permanent, so you got me by the short hairs on that one.
Yeah, well, it's only been there for about a year.
So what was I going to say? Oh, so I've got Grogu over here. I went to a rehearsal. I had to take the twin, so everything had to come off the top of the twin. Which, believe it or not, the spark just went back on top of. I almost traded the spark away Saturday.
For a can of Spam?
No, for a katana. But I would have had to drive to Richmond, which in gas and time would have been 6.5 to 7 hours. And what if that amp wasn't good? I mean, I'm not saying the guy wasn't taking care of it or anything, but I'm not driving all the way to Richmond for somebody I don't know for an amp I'm not familiar with. So I didn't go.
Dude, can I show you something? I got $20 in my hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, switch.
Yeah, this is a Switchcraft switch for a Gibson style.
Is that for the Shangzi?
Yeah, but I'm just laughing because I'm like, this is probably worth more than the guitar at this point. But I cannot believe these things are friggin' $20.
I can. You know what? So much stuff is going up. I came this close. This is what happens when you have a little alcohol and a credit card in your hand.
Drunk reverb.
Yeah, no, it was drunk Amazon, right? So I was drunk.
No, that's even worse.
And what pops up in my feed, but a Les Paul style, like, off the wall name, whatever name. Let's call it generic Les Paul. That is $200, and I'm like, no.
Why are you even looking at stuff like that?
It popped up. See, that's the problem with today's intelligence in shopping. I said to my son, I wasn't searching it. I didn't internet search. I didn't do anything. I need some beard oil. And beard oil shows up in my freaking now, it could be because I have pictures of myself with a beard. Now, you got to be a little less than too, dramatic. Let's not give out too much hyperbole.
I think you would be shocked by how intelligent those services are without actually having to listen into you.
My phone sits in my pocket.
We use one at work. We can actually target people in specific areas, and I'm talking down to like block areas. And who have this specific occupation and this particular job title, market to them. And it's like, it's so sophisticated that it'll tie their Amazon account to their LinkedIn account and try to make all these leaps about who should be marketed what.
Yeah.
And it's really good at it too. Yeah, it's wild. And for those of you that are involved in social media, if you're a musician today and you're not involved in social media, why not? Because it's a great way to market yourself. But for those of you that are like in social media, understand that it is also the biggest honeypot for anybody who wants any dirt against you ever. And just realize that anything illegal that you discuss is being seen by someone. Or just any like unsavory conversation. Don't end up like Cuomo, you know. I had to go there. Jim, don't, because I know you have very strong feelings.
As a New Yorker, I have a lot of strong feelings.
But I was just pointing out that like things on the internet stay there forever, and if these services are already getting intelligent enough to tie stuff together for your shopping habits, imagine what it's going to be like when it's in the wrong hands.
That's okay. So I don't think when it's in the wrong hands, it's when they start using them.
Yeah, it already is.
If you think that TikTok isn't listening to everything, you're insane. You're just not paying attention.
No, I mean, TikTok's a good example because it's a foreign-based application, but I don't so. Like with the way that things are sandboxed in the iOS world, I don't think TikTok's that dangerous on an iOS device, but on any other device, it's terrifying.
And remember, about 50% of your devices, well, 60% are non-iOS. Was it 60%, 65%? So it's a good percentage. But anyway, let's leave all that conspiracy theory nonsense behind. The thing to talk about when it comes to that is just that I'm sitting there and you see my Facebook. Anybody who's a Facebook friend of mine knows that, and I'm not hard to find. It knows that I sit and I cut and I snip it. By the way, so they're not real links. You can't click on it and get there. But I snip pictures of stuff that comes up in my feed, and it's hilarious. The shit that comes up in my feed. I mean, seriously.
Because you get all the like the crazy like women looking for a good time kind of.
Yeah, ad. I'm like, what?
Well, it's funny, Jim, because you get that stuff, and like I get nothing like that.
I don't go to weird websites. I don't surf, stuff that
someone in your house does though. That's what's causing that because it's reading out your IP addresses. I
think that well, that person isn't here anymore, but it doesn't matter because the
taint is already there.
Right. Once the genie comes out of the bottle, you're not gonna put it back in.
Not for a long time.
Well, let's just say I'm not looking for a woman. I'm not 420 friendly, although I don't care. I'm just not 420 friendly. In other words, I don't do this stuff. Never have, never will. Don't care.
Not worth money.
Nope.
At least in your mind.
I don't eat mustard either, but I'm not looking to, talk about what people like, dislike. It ain't my bag. I don't drink Pabst Blue Ribbon, but I don't stop people who do. It's just, it's like, those things pop up in my feed and I have to laugh. This is the extent of my comedy right here.
Yep.
But I was listening to some George Carlin. I love George Carlin, by the way. I loved George Carlin. And I thought he was one of the craziest individuals. Should I use that word? That you could watch. But what has that got to do with music? I'll tell you what it's got to do with music. So I went from George Carlin to Eddie Murphy, from Eddie Murphy to Stevie Wonder. And that was where I went back at music. Eddie
It's funny
Murphy.
that you were listening to Stevie Wonder this weekend too.
Were you? Really?
I learned a song from Stevie Wonder this weekend, my friend.
What song?
I spent 20 minutes on Friday night, I think, learning "Living for the City."
Oh, that's a good song.
synth parts and all that.
Oh,
so
I learned all the chords in there.
Discordant synth part in the middle of it, which is actually really tonal. Even though it sounds atonal as shit, like it's really tonal actually.
Yeah.
What a great song though, man. Like 4 chords or no, it's 5 chords, I think, the whole song
5
basically.
chords.
And
yeah.
And it's, I mean, you wouldn't know that if you listen to it. It doesn't sound like 5 chords. It sounds like there's a hell of a lot more going on underneath there harmonically. I guess that 5 chords that you would play on guitar, I don't know if the synth section has additional chords. I think it might have one or 2 other.
Yeah, and the horns when they're moving, they have.
Are there horns on that song?
Yeah, when you're going living in the city. Or is that a synth? Is that a synth playing horn part?
No, I don't think there are horns on that.
Oh, you know what? You know what version I'm thinking of when I'm thinking of horns? There's a guy named Johnny Lang.
Yeah.
Who did a version of that.
Yeah, but Living for the City is it's not a song that a white dude can sing.
No, and he shouldn't. That's why
I'm just saying, like, I'm thinking about that song and I'm like, I was like, oh yeah, maybe I should cover it. And I'm like, no, that's probably not good in today's landscape. That's gonna cause some problems. But I do appreciate the song, and I appreciate the story and the message. So,
yep.
Holy crap!
Yeah. Well, we're at a crossroads where a decision has to be made. There are certain songs that, to me, not just because of certain lyrical content, where I don't think Stevie Wonder would have a problem with you singing that song or playing that song.
No, he absolutely wouldn't. I think actually he would encourage people to embrace it that way. But I just know that other people would have.
Yeah, the Twitter mob is out there.
Yeah.
But I can say this. There are certain songs that I always felt were sacred beyond, that you just don't play them. And the reason
it's like that one artist song that's like, that's their song, and you're just not going to do any better.
Nope.
Don't bother with it. I can think of, and then people will probably shoot me because I'm sure there's some people in this group that have covered it, but like I would look Stairway to Heaven like that and I look at it for a different reason actually, because I actually don't think it's all that great. I think it's a lot more trumped up to be better than it is. Plus this has been done to death, but a lot of people would say that is Led Zeppelin's song, and you do not cover that. You just don't do it.
For me, the songs that would be for Led Zeppelin, to me, I don't think anybody does Black Dog right. I've never heard anybody play Black Dog right.
You haven't heard me play it.
No, but I'm just saying, I've never heard anybody play it right. Every time I hear somebody play it, they miss a beat. And they
because they drop the beats and they rush it, and it helps to have a drummer who can actually play when you're playing it too. That's a thing. I watched a guy play it one time, and he played with the drummer, and the drummer did not know what the hell they were doing. That was not a good look.
I've seen people do similarly. Tom Petty. Oh yeah. Because there's that. A lot of people do that. They go and it's like no, and then it goes down. It's kind of in that same line where there's that whole dragging piece. Then you come back into it, and then you come out. Where you've got those extra beats at the end, because the time signature would never line up if you just tried to.
Yeah. Do you know how many people I have watched butcher Van Halen songs?
Oh God!
That they think they know how to play it, and like they cock of the walk with it, and you're like, that's not even the right chord. I mean, when you see people playing like bar chords and playing Van Halen tunes, you're like, what are you doing? Because almost everything he did was 3 notes or 2 notes per string.
Yeah. Yep.
And he, like, every once in a while he'd get a G that was like he'd use the third position G5, where you don't play the third, so you don't play the A string basically, and like that's signature stuff. and once you realize like that's part of the style, you realize that like probably half the people that are performing Van Halen songs just haven't studied the music that closely. In fact, I am guilty. I will admit I played oh gosh, I've played several of their tunes before, but the one that I got wrong for years and years and years was Ain't Talking About Love. And I didn't figure it out until probably 6 weeks before his death. That I was like, you mean it has a descending arpeggio that starts on that note? Like I thought it was one note later. Like such an idiot. Now every time I have to play that to correct myself, because I'm like, I'll play it wrong the first time, and then the second time I just start playing it right because I'm like, I'm such an idiot. It's just the way I've played that song for so many damn years that it's ingrained in me now. And partially, I think for his stuff, like it was so technically complex that, and it sounded like rock and roll. So at that time, rock and roll was not technically complex. And then you got this guy that's like doing all this stuff that's basically guitar acrobatics. You have to almost reverse engineer it to get it right.
Yeah, I mean, so Spanish Fly proves just how good Eddie Van Halen was on the acoustic.
Or Ice Cream Man, I mean,
yeah, but when you hear what he can do on an acoustic, there was another acoustic song I can't remember. I was just listening to it this weekend, and I said, "Oh my God, that's right!" And he's just buzzing through that thing like a saw, and you go, "Oh my God, it was otherworldly."
I think my generation, and I'm going to go out on a limb because I know that we have listeners that are in my generation. So please, if I'm overstepping, let me know. But I just got this impression that when I was starting to play guitar, and you tell people like, who are your heroes? And you say like Eddie Van Halen, some of these guys would look at you and they go, really? Like, he's okay. No, I don't think anybody actually in my generation truly, I meant not anybody, but I think most people in my generation who I grew up playing around just didn't get it. Like, they didn't realize how talented the dude actually was. And I'm not talking about in reference to his the people he was playing against at that time, but even the people posthumously. I mean, you could put him on stage next to any of the contemporary guys now. Yeah. Obviously, Eddie's gone now, but and he would have held his own. I mean, even with guys like Paul Gilbert, and because he could play like that, he just didn't. He was very into like making sure that the stuff, like all of his solos are real short. He doesn't like he puts way more effort into the rhythm playing, and in a lot of ways, he's probably actually more tasteful than a lot of those guys because he's not concerned with, hey, my solo's got to be spectacular and it's got to be 24 bars long, and he just never was that dude.
Well, if you think about it, probably the longest quote unquote solo he had was Eruption.
Yeah, and that was really just like a learning exercise. I mean,
yeah, it was a bunch of exercises he put together, and that song is not copy pasted.
No,
but when you look at that first album, Jamie's Crying, Ain't Talking About Love, all that stuff, Running with the Devil,
Atomic Punk.
That intro to Atomic Punk, that is. I mean, for that time.
And it's not even hard. I mean, he's just using the flanger. We said it because I don't know if that episode ever aired where we talked about Eddie, but there was a section in where I didn't understand this. Okay, I figured it out later. He was literally kicking the flanger on for like 2 notes in a phrase and then turning it off and doing that stuff all the time. It was like, say Eric Johnson has had momentary switches installed for like compressors and stuff before, so you can turn the compressor on only when he holds it down. And it's like, that's basically what Eddie was doing.
Yeah.
He was applying, and Ain't Talking About Love, those 2 notes when he plays that, I guess it's the B and the C that he uses in between each playing of the chord. They're almost like passing notes or whatever. When he plays them, he hits the flanger every time. And I always thought it was like he was using a harmonic or something, but no, I realized like play on, play off, for those two notes. Like, that's just mind-boggling to me that somebody had that forethought. Like, this is how we're going to do this. And, it wasn't like they overdubbed it in the studio. They're like, oh,
Right.
hell, I'll just learn to do it right. I'll learn to do it live. Like, it's fine.
Well, that whole album was stuff that they were already doing live, that they were already playing, almost some of it since their Mammoth days. So
yeah.
to throw that stuff out there. And like I said, that album was recorded in a week or some crazy crap like that, or 10 days, some crazy.
It was it was like 3 days, and then there was like a day for overdubs, and then the day to mix it. And it wasn't even like the mixing wasn't even an issue because the stuff was all recorded with the same mic setups, and like the mixing was just adding extra flavor here and there, and some automation to bring up vocals and that kind of thing.
Yeah, panning a guitar there. If you put headphones, and that's a cool thing about those days, I'm not saying that nobody does it anymore, but you would put a set of headphones on and listen to that, and you can hear that guitar just coming around your head, during that, and just the little things that they did. That's my favorite album by them. They could have never done another album like the Zombies. They could have never done another album, and I still would have held Eddie in high praise. But to come back and do,
really everything up to 1984, even 1984 is crazy good. Like everything that they did was good. And I would argue a lot of the stuff they did after 1984 was great too. But
a
lot of people take,
OU 812 and For Unlawful Common Knowledge, and I don't remember which one came from 5150. There's a lot of great stuff out there. I hope they do a Eddie Van Halen Funko Pop, because I got to get one of those. But it's just good stuff.
The funny thing is, so you were talking about the production work. I don't know if you knew this, but like Eddie and Ted Templeman hated each other.
Oh yeah, they had toe to toe a lot.
Yeah, well, that's part of the reason why he built his own studio, because he got tired of dealing with Ted Templeman, and he just got tired of being told what to do, right?
Right.
So like Ted was the guy that said, no, Eddie's guitar is going to be panned. I think it's left. It just depends on how your headphones are oriented and stuff. But he's going to be panned on one side, and bass player's going to be panned on the other, and like a real band, like a band on stage, right?
Drums are singing down the middle.
Eddie was like, no, what are you going to do if somebody has like mono headphones, or they can only hear out of one side of their headphones because their headphones are broken? And there was like all these arguments between them about it. And you think about it, like it sort of makes sense, but I think part of the characteristics of those albums are like the way the guitars are panned. I've done it in some of my own stuff, and I will say this, I do err on the Eddie side of things, because I'm kind of like, when I'm playing solo not acoustic music, but instrumental music, I don't want the guitar panned left and the bass panned right. It just doesn't make sense to me. But if I had vocals, like vocals would be front and center, guitar on left, bass on the right, and I would probably take reverb sends off both and pan them to the other side, just so I could fill out the sound. Mm-hmm. Which is something a lot of people don't think about when they're putting a mix together, but that's basically what you want to do. You want to take a mono reverb and you want to pan it to the other side, so that you can actually get something over there to fill out the sound.
Yeah, because if you listen to a lot of the old Beatles records and stuff like that, what they would do is they would pan the guitar hard one way, and then put the verb and the delay and stuff, the wet signal, on the other side.
Yeah, that's how the Jimi Hendrix records were done too.
Yep.
And actually, like the first Hendrix record was done in mono.
Yeah.
So they didn't even start to approach that stuff until they did the stereo mixes years later.
Yeah. And you got to remember, so that's exactly what I was going to say. So a lot of people, even in their homes, had mono systems. And
even now they got mono systems. I mean, that's like, I can't tell you how many times where I've got like stereo outputs on something and I'm just like, no, we're not going to use stereo on this because I don't want it to be too big. So I'll just take like a mono out and plug it in and, track mono guitar or track mono bass or whatever, because it just makes sense for the mix.
Well, and that's just it. So back then, um, I can't tell you how many people would have literally back then. These were expensive because you had two.
Yeah.
A lot of people had one, or they had one little ear thing, and they were terrible. You had these little transistor radios that you would walk around with, and it was really cool if you had an FM dial on it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to look back, especially if you never lived it. It's easy to look back and go, well, they should have just, no, because I remember when I got my first little Radio Shack recording device that most people would use like to go into a lecture hall. They would hit the record and play button and then, get their thing. I remember what a big deal that was for me to get one. That was like $50. Now $50, you're like, oh, $50.
It was like $200 with inflation,
Yeah, that's like $200 now. And for a kid to have it, and my mother like, and it was stellar for me to get my first stereo. I think I got my to put it in perspective. I didn't have color television personally. We didn't have a color television until somewhere in the mid 70s.
Yeah.
Personally, I didn't have a stereo that I could use until I was 13, 14. So that was the mid 70s, mid to late 70s. Then the first time, this is a true story, the first time I ever owned a remote control for anything, I was probably 25. No, 28. So that was closing in on 85, right? I was,
right.
95. So closing in the mid 90s. And so it's the culture has been always, and we have this throwaway culture. My mother had a stereo, didn't want it anymore, gave it to me. I got the hand-me-down stereo.
Yeah,
I got
now it's different.
Yeah, I got the hand-me-down records. I got the hand-me-down clothing. And I didn't even have an older brother. I'd get stuff that, your cousin's growing out of this, so your uncles and aunts are sending stuff over. I'm like, why do I have to have that stuff? And so, my first guitars were always hand-me-downs, and so we're in that, like I'm doing right now, throwing away my freaking dryer. We're in that throwaway culture where we just go, no, you know what? I'm just going to toss it.
And yeah. I mean, even music itself has become disposable, and people are not thinking about it in that way. But like, that's what Spotify is.
Yeah.
The play it once and then forget about it kind of mentality.
Yeah.
It's damaging. Like, it's damaging to mental health in addition to being damaging to our industry and damaging to pretty much everything, really.
Yeah. Well, everything is becoming. Not that music hasn't been a commodity for a long time. But
being a commodity and being garbage are two different things, though.
Here's the thing about that I don't think anybody can appreciate. And I know there's a positive side, but I want to talk about the negative side of this for just a minute. Is this. Let's say I had $7, okay? $7. That's how much a record was, an album when I was a kid. It was 50 to 75 cents. I went up to like $1 at some point for a single, okay? Or I could take $7, get a whole album. Right now, what if I was a musician and it was my job, okay? Other than and we've talked about this. Let's talk about the musician making money. Let's leave out the musicians. It's an artist, right? What drives a musician to care that they put together 8 to 12 songs that are listenable, on a record album? I mean, there's a record album behind me right here over my head. Animals. You know how many songs are on there? 5.
But running time is still,
right,
typical of that genre.
That's right. And one song takes up an entire side of the album, almost. And so what I'm getting at is this: the musicians of the time, take Van Halen. They're going into the studio for the first time, right? They're getting ready to record Van Halen. Now, they had been talked to by several different management companies and record labels. People were all over them. Okay. That album we were just talking about, you can listen to that album. You can listen to Diver Down. You can listen to Van Halen 2. You can listen to Women and Children First. End to end, right? That's a good album. Now, I'm not, please, folks, if you're fans of these people, don't think I'm putting your musician down. This is the culture, not the musician. What pushes Beyonce or Katy Perry or anyone to put together a full album of listenable material?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Because let's face it, they're going to know the singles that are going to sell, and they're going to market those, and they're not going to do the rest of the album because they don't give a crap.
Yeah.
It used to be that when you did an album, it was a collection of songs that was grouped together for a reason, or it was your best material, and that was the way you bought it. And then you might have singles that were like other tunes. So like every time the Beatles would release a full album when they released here in the States, oftentimes they'd include the singles that went in between the last album and this album.
Yep.
Like that's kind of the mentality there, was like, okay, so you could buy the short story or you could buy the magazine with all the other short stories that went with it.
Right.
So I think that model is a little different.
Well, we called it AOR. We called it album-oriented rock.
Well, yeah, but so that happened afterwards, and I think that kind of changed things. Like when album rock became popular, the singles died off. By the time I was a kid, you could get singles, but they were hard to find. Most places didn't carry singles, and your singles were usually limited to your top 25 radio hits, right?
Yep.
But I think it's interesting. We've seen a real shift in the industry, and like modern artists, somebody you might sort of be familiar with. I'm sure you probably heard the name at least. This guy Pliny, right?
Yep.
Who's an Australian guitarist, and he plays, progressive rock, progressive metal, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And kind of like in the vein of like, Joe Satriani and that kind of thing, but a little bit probably more John Petrucci-ish. Anyway, he's got 2 studio albums. He's been around, I think he started to hit the scene like in 2015. Handmade Cities came out in 2016. Impulse Voices came out in 2020. He has several EPs, and most of them, to my understanding, are like live cuts. And he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 singles. Okay. And he's contributed to a number of other people's records, but that is the limit of his discography. Mm-hmm. Two albums, one of which is a short album, very short. Handmade Cities is not full album length by any stretch. And I haven't heard Impulse Voices yet. In fact, I didn't know it was out until I looked at this. But my point is that's a marked paradigm shift. Mm-hmm. When you look at a modern artist like somebody like Pliny, who's like not even doing conventional records really. I mean, he's done 2, and one of them is arguably not a conventional record. Yep. Whereas compared to Joe Satriani coming out with Surfing with an Alien, Surfing with the Alien was like a 14-track album, that was released in the late 80s. So that's my point. We've changed from being a culture that values something and is willing to take a chance on a purchase and love it as a piece of art like that, or just want the song. They want that instantaneous moment. Yeah. And then we'll forget about it.
Yeah. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. If that's what you're looking for in your life, then that's fine. What I'm talking about is this. If, all right, so I know that I was not, this is one of the things that we have to live with in a reality that the world does not revolve around us, right?
Sure.
George Carlin said, we're save the world. No, we're trying to save ourselves. Um, the world will still be here when we're gone. It was here for 4.5 billion years. It'll be here when we're gone. But this is the point. We live in a bubble, and like I've said before, myself and my friends would get together and we'd listen to an album. We'd sit down and we knew that an album was coming out. Somebody, a lot of times, all of us bought it, but one of us would put it on the turntable and we'd sit and listen to that album. A couple people got high. A couple people just enjoyed it. A couple people just, whatever. So a couple people went, that's not my bag. But we sat and we experienced the album. There was on like Friday or Saturday nights, right up into the 90s, by the way, there was these radio stations that would play a whole album. They'd be like, yep, we're gonna do a debut of Pink Floyd's, whatever. And they would play the whole thing. So that's where you could say, oh, you know what? I listened to that. I wasn't crazy about it. I'm not going to buy it. Or, oh, you know what? I really like that. My point is that it was a social experience. And I'm not saying you have to have that social experience. What I'm saying is if the record album doesn't exist, if there's no reason for the record album to exist in that form where it is an experience. We're sitting down with Kiss Destroyer the first time was an experience for me. We're sitting down with Pink Floyd's The Wall was an experience for me, so on and so forth. When you can't have it, then it's not available. You know what I mean? It's not there to have.
Sure.
And so I think a lot of musicians, when AC/DC released the newest album, there were friends of mine who we were excited. And when I reached out to a few people, they were like, AC/DC's released now. I got to get that. And some people went, well, I'll listen to it on iTunes or whatever. But a lot of people said, I've got to go get it. Iron Maiden's new live album. A lot of people said, I got to go get it. I'm not crazy about it, but I spent the money and I got it. So whatever. But the point that I'm making is you can't have an experience that doesn't exist. We no longer have a dodo bird that we can go see. And so are these the dodos of today? Is the record album the dodo, or is the record album coming back? People like Pliny, like you just said, people like Joe Bonamassa, like AC/DC. Are they trying to bring the record album back? And will that experience translate? That's a good question. I'm just throwing it out there.
I don't think Pliny is. I think Pliny's wise enough to see the writing on the wall, but I think that for specific genres, like you're still going to go buy jazz in album format. You're still going to go buy, blues in album format. And I think I think a distribution method makes sense. Mm-hmm. Even from the perspective of this album is going to drop on iTunes, and you still see artists dropping albums. I mean, Taylor Swift is re-recording her whole catalog. That's a thing. But I just don't, if you're me right now and you're recording songs, one-offs, does it make more sense to you to produce each one individually and to get maximum sales and exposure by releasing them all individually? Or does it making a big deal out of each release? Or does it make more sense to try and pimp an album? Because I honestly don't think that method works for individual artists anymore.
Yeah.
That's
what I'm throwing out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. They're reacting to culture. It's not like they're making the decision to, do this because they want to. I mean, I wholeheartedly believe that somebody like Pliny would much rather be putting out a record of like-minded music that all fits together. But the reality is the way that things are financed today, as Gene Simmons said, rock music is dead because nobody's financing it. And he's right. As much as I hate to admit that he's right, he is right on that. Nobody's financing it. So therefore you have to do these individual productions, and you'd be better off to spend more money on a really good song and promote that really good song to get, a listener base building up. And that's really what this is about, right? Like, this is always about a listener base. So I think money goes along with that. And I think people kind of they look at the money side of it more than they look at the listener base side of it. But for me as an individual artist, I start doing Twitch. The reason why I'm doing Twitch is because I want to get, 5 or 10 people or 15 people or 20 people that are listening to my music somewhere. And then hopefully that becomes 30 people, and as I keep doing it, that builds. And I'm not thinking about dollar signs. I'm just thinking about, like, how do I get my music out there? Like, how do I get so I can have gigs and do those kinds of things? And maybe money comes along with it, but that's not the goal. It's a distribution method, right? For any sort of thing. Most writers don't think that when they write a word on a page, I'm going to make $1 million. That's not how they start. They start by, I'm going to communicate an idea.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, you have to have an audience. And
yeah,
so that's the way I look at it. Like, if you're going to sell singles, it's to gather a larger audience.
Yeah. Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree. I just, like I said, we have a bunch of people that sit on social media now, and they go, only a 90s kid would understand, or only a 2000s kid would understand.
It's already nostalgia at this point.
And it's like, I can't imagine. Now, I was not, when they were new, I was not a Nirvana fan. And so I didn't care. But I had friends who were like, Jim, you got to come over and hear the new album, or you got to come over and listen to the new Alice in Chains. You got to listen to new, whatever. And I would go, and I would still listen to it, even if it was my bag. I've noticed that there are some things that are starting to come back, and maybe they never left. Maybe they just went underground for a little while and came back, and they're resurfacing. But arcades.
There's definitely some nostalgia that drives a lot of that. And even the arcade thing, like, they've turned that into, so if you've been into one of the arcades, like the ones that have opened up around here, they're marketed at adults. Yes. Because the young generation doesn't get it at all.
Right.
It's totally for us.
Yeah.
And, like, that makes sense to me.
It makes sense to me. And so let's think about, how did we wind up loving to go to an arcade? What made it that you wanted to go to an arcade? Because you're 20 years younger than I am. Almost to the
Well, it was the good times. It was the place to be. It was the hangout. But it's the nostalgia that's driving that, which means it's on life support.
Yeah.
It's only alive as long as we're alive.
So for me, because of when I was around, it was new, right? That woo lights and thunder. You couldn't do that at home. Now we've got PlayStations, right? We've got Xboxes, we've got everything else.
Which in a lot of times are more powerful than what you had in the arcades.
Got the stuff. Right. That's right. And so I'm of a mind, and I could be totally off base with this. I'm of a mind that the younger generation, because I'm seeing this with music and I'm seeing it now with other stuff, bowling, arcades, different things like this. I'm starting to see younger people. Now, I'm not talking about, I'm talking about right between, my son is 21 tomorrow. I'm starting to see that they're being drawn to it, because to them, how come I never, it's like, how come I never saw this? How come this is kind of cool, And it's like, and all these really young kids that are sitting there playing Space Invaders, and like, they could be playing that at home. And then I'm thinking, no, it's because they're there with their buddies. They're there with their friends.
I think some of it, so like, that's like secondhand nostalgia. Mm-hmm. In that because they missed it, because it didn't exist. It didn't exist, at that time. There's always a resurgence. Just like, so like, you remember the death of the vinyl record. I remember the death of the vinyl. It happened during my life. Yeah. And I can remember people being like, good riddance. And then like 15 years later, you had this small hipster community, which was buying vinyl again. Yep. And all these vinyl record shops started to take off again. And like, that became a big collector's thing. And now it's like, they're actually producing vinyl again. Yeah. Which is pretty wild. But at the same time, I think a lot of the younger generation looking at things like, hey, I'm going to pick up a guitar because I never saw anybody do that my entire life. And believe me, there are kids out there that like grew up on Daft Punk and didn't realize that like there were actual instrument things that you could do that were interesting. I think some of that like I'm going to pick this up because no one else in my generation did is a little bit of a hipster attitude about it. But I'm not going to. Hey, listen, I'm not going to belabor that point. Like, if you want to play guitar, by all means, cheapen the industry so that we can buy stuff again. Because if it's an enthusiast market, you're going to pay. And I honestly, I look at this situation, and you're talking about like that as a reaction to throwaway culture, and I think it's important to acknowledge it exists, but I also feel like it's not enough to stem the tide. And maybe that changes, but like right now, at least with, for example, you're talking about arcades, like that's only going to last so long as the equipment works. And I have a friend who actually used to work for an arcade here locally, which was like an adult arcade, where he was talking about like them decommissioning machines because they broke, you can't get parts anymore. And it was like, I guess that's that, you know. And there's still, you know, there's preservation stuff out there. There's ROMs, and like somebody at some point is going to start acquiring the licenses to put that on PCs that look just like arcade machines.
Yeah, of course.
That you can buy for pennies on the dollar. But the point is, like, there will always be people that's like, that's not the same. And I just sort of feel like, dude, I long for those days. Like, you brought up the arcades, and like I'm very nostalgic about it because that's where we wanted to be when we were kids. Like, we never really got to go all that often. But I mean, we would go to the mall, and like my parents would go shopping, and we'd go to the arcade because that was like, I don't want to. What the hell do I want to shop for? Just give me like $5 in quarters, and I'll go play video games for a while.
Yep.
And I can remember being very, very angry because like you would play games, and the money would just disappear, and like the games are, you know, always set super hard and stuff. But I sort of feel like, music is kind of headed in the same direction right now, in that I do see a revitalization and a rediscovery of people actually playing music. I don't think it's the dominant form of what's going on right now, but I think it's enough to keep it alive for a while. So my local outreach here is through Twitch. Obviously, you've been watching live streams, and like I've been doing it 2 or 3 nights a week or whatever. And it's so funny because if you browse the music section on there, I would say 80% of it is DJs. I would say 10% of it is people doing live production.
Yep.
And then the other 10% is like actual musicians playing their instrument.
Yeah.
Which is pretty crazy when you think about it. Like that spinning turntables and playing somebody else's vinyl is considered, you know, high art now, when, you know, you've got people who actually like played the stuff that's on that vinyl that's still alive.
I hate to make this admission, but it was stuff like that actually kept vinyl alive in a way.
Definitely was.
It was keeping vinyl on life support, because that thing, before they could synthesize that was what they did. And a lot of DJs that do that, the turntable thing, they're proud of the fact that they're effing up a vinyl for a while, you know? And
many of them are still using vinyl too, even though that the CD equivalents are really, really good.
Yep.
They're just like, no, I've always done it this way, and I prefer the feel of vinyl, and you know, so that's their thing.
Well, if you think about it, it's 12 inches, it moves better, it's got, you know, and I know that they're doing similar things with that, but digitally and so on and so forth. I'm just saying that I could imagine that they're the tube amp people of the DJ world.
Dude, I can't tell you how many people I've heard about like going through weddings where one of the spouses is like, no, I don't want a live band. And it boggles my mind. You'll spend $100,000 on a ceremony. Some of these people spend $100,000 getting married.
Yep.
Like which all right. So let's be real. If you're spending $100,000 on a wedding, you better have $1 million in the bank. Yeah. But the reality is, like, you're not. You want to hire a DJ? Well, they play all the songs I want. And it's like, whoa, you know, you don't want to share this moment with somebody like an actual flesh and blood human being on this stage. You want one dude with a PA system and karaoke tracks,
Right.
pretty much. Like, it's just mind boggling to me. I honestly, I'm just like, holy crap.
It's,
I could have a chamber orchestra, or I could have an organ grinder.
Yeah.
With a monkey who dances.
Yep. That's what they hire the organ grinder with the monkey and pay him $10,000.
I mean, yeah. Well, and that's the other thing is they make way more money than wedding bands do. It's crazy how much money some of these DJs are making.
Yep.
I know of a wedding band that used to do $20,000 to $30,000 a year on weekend gigs, and they were like complaining because one of the band members, actually the drummer, left and he became a DJ. And they were complaining. They're like, dude, we should come back and you should do this gig. And he's like, why would I come back? Yeah. He's like, dude, I'm making 4 times as much money.
Yep.
By myself.
Yeah, than the band made.
Then the band got paid on its own. Like, in other words, he was making like $50,000 or $60,000 a year, you know, spinning CDs on the weekend. Or in this case, I think it was actually he's already on the iTunes crowd. So he just had all the normal iTunes crap in a PA, basically.
I've known a lot of very talented singers, musicians who took their gear, added a karaoke machine at one point, an MP3 plus G player to it. And then after the karaoke thing started to wane and wane, they sang to tracks or they just played music and they're doing it and they're doing great. And, you know, I don't put them down for it.
Hey, listen, you're making a lot of money. I just don't understand the decision-making process there.
I don't understand the purchaser's decision-making process. I respect them for what they're doing. It's their decision to do with their money.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
But I don't got it.
Well, you know what? So, like, before I switch topics, because I got the other thing I want to talk about, but so here's where because I'm like trying to verbalize exactly why I'm sort of outraged about this, and it's really that, like, I think so in my mind, music is a performance art. Yeah. I don't care how. I mean, believe me, I love great albums and well recorded, like well written, perfect albums. That's like totally my jam. But I don't understand people who prefer a squeaky clean, perfect album to a band playing it live, especially if it's the original band, right? But like, music is a performance art. So what the hell? You know, that's why the DJ thing kind of like irritates me, because it's like, I could have this band actually do the work in the way that it was intended to be done, or I could have it just like the album. And it's that same argument that's gone back and forth for decades, whether, you know, the album is superior to a live performance. And as a music lover, like, I used to say that for some bands the album was superior to live performance, but now I kind of judge the bands harshly on that. If you can't pull it together to make good sounds out of the songs that are on your records, then you're not worth my time. Like, in fact, when somebody will tell me like, "Oh, you should get this record, you should check it out." You know what I do, Jim? I go on YouTube and I look for their live performances, and I watch a couple of their live performances before I didn't decide to listen to the record. Because I'm like, if they suck live, why the hell would I want to listen to the record? You know what I mean? Like, they're not good musicians. So screw that. Which is funny because when we started this thing you were doing, the Monkees, when you called me earlier,
yeah.
And I'm just laughing because I'm like, that's totally the same argument, right?
Yeah, it is.
Anyway, all right. So I think we've harped enough about this for the evening. Harp, you know, we need a harp sound effect or something, you know. Some like arpeggiated stuff. Anyway,
right.
So I'm challenging myself, Jim. You have your year of no gear. I have my year of I'm going to make a hell of a lot of music. And so today, in lieu of streaming, I was actually going to stream video games just so I could start to build my channel a bit more over on Twitch. I decided, shit, I'm going to actually. I played a game for like an hour this morning. I didn't play on Twitch. I just played a game for myself for an hour. Drank my coffee, and I said, you know what? I said at 11 o'clock, I'm stopping, and I said I'm going to write some music, and I said I'm going to do this every weekend. Because I for one thing, I need more music for my live performances. But number two is like, I need to get better at that. I need to get better at just like being consistent and having consistent output. And we've talked about forced writing on the show before. I don't think this is forced writing because like I do want to make sure that I'm writing good stuff,
right?
And not just writing to write. But I fully expect there's going to be a little bit of that goes on. But so I picked up my guitar. And I had the Muse. I don't know why. And I strummed out some chords. And actually, I had two songs worth of chords come out, 2 different chord progressions. But I was kind of stumbling through it. And I was actually what ended up happening was I put it into Easy Bass, Easy Bass from TuneTrack.
TuneTrack.
Yeah. And the one gripe I have with TuneTrack is that it doesn't do 7th chords, it doesn't do any extensions, and it doesn't have diminished or augmented. Now, you can do an A minor with a G in the bass or an F sharp in the bass or whatever. You can change the bass note against a chord, so you can kind of simulate a 7th by using the appropriate major triad with a minor triad, or and stacking them appropriately. Yep. So you make your major triad, then add the note you want in the bass, or vice versa. But then it becomes a problem because I'll give you the chord progression I have here. I have a 1 minor 7, a 4 minor 7, a minor 7, a 2 diminished, and a 5/7 chord. Now, can you tell me why that would be an issue? Because there's a couple of chords in here that are a problem. Jim's shaking his head. Just to take him out of the hot seat for a second, the chords I was really having a problem with were the 4 minor 7, which is C, E flat, G, B flat, right? Which is not 2 stacked perfect triads, and then the 2 diminished is like impossible.
Yep.
Because if you can't flat the 5th, you can't flat the 5th.
See that thing right there? That's my Easy Bass.
Well, so the nice part about it is with Easy Bass, I don't have to come up with a pattern. Like I can do it, and then I can like just grab through patterns and find one I like. And I'll go back. I have gone back and retracked the bass part, or track the bass part with a guitar and import it, so that it'll track against it. And actually, I think I did some of that today. But I was just thinking about it, and I'm like, for one thing, I sent Easy Bass, I sent TuneTrack a nasty letter, and I said, why in the fuck? And just totally angry about it. Why would you ever release a piece of software that does not include diminished and augmented intervals?
Yeah. Because
even just the interval, because for bass, you don't actually need extended chords like to make a bass line, but you got to have at least the triads, and they only included major and minor. Like, what?
Yeah, I while I don't like it, I get it because it's more of a basic. I hate to use the word bass.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
But yeah, so I too have had to struggle over the last week. So I joined a band, and so I needed something to practice with. So I said, because I don't want to have to lug this twin every time I go over there, and I am not lugging my Marshall in and out of there. So I said, all right, I need something, and the spark is not loud enough to be heard over a real drummer. So I had to buy
a question. I didn't want to.
Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, go ahead.
But is your twin actually lighter than the Marshall?
A lot.
Really?
Yeah, it's 33 pounds. The Marshall's 40 something.
Interesting. My Fillmore is supposed to be 40 pounds, like 38 to 40
that's about
pounds.
right. Yeah, this is 33 and a half. So, but it's bulky and it's big. And the rehearsal space is a guy's living room. So I had to get something small that I could leave there, but also be heard over a drummer. So I got that. And that's going to leave there. It's going to stay there. But
what did you end up getting?
Can you see the top of it?
You bought an orange.
Nope, it's not an orange.
Blues Junior.
Yep, it's just a Blues Junior, but it's going to stay there. It's not going.
And it's but it's a requirement. I mean, like that's a professional.
I have to have it, otherwise I was going to have to lug in and out. And when I was going in and out, they were like, okay, so I want to give a little bit of background. I left this band once. When I say left it, I left them. And so they were like, are you leaving us again? I said, no, I'm just taking my amp home. And they go,
I think I know the one.
And they go, well, why do you need to take it home? I go, well, I need to play through it. It was a twin. I took it home. I was like, I'm not leaving it here. And they were
that's
like,
the funny part. It's like, well, what we wanted to use it when you weren't here.
No,
excuse me?
Yeah, no. Yeah, not those guys. And that's why I was like, so I figured the little amp would be great for it. So I got a Blues Junior.
I don't understand people who look at things like that. It's like, well, it's just here. No.
Yeah, no, that is mine. And so, yeah.
Not unless you want to pay for the repair.
Yeah, especially, so it's a tube amp too. So anyway, we'll see, because it's louder than I remember. Holy shit, it's louder than I remember.
Oh yeah, Blues Juniors are plenty loud.
Damn loud. But the problem is I actually wanted to leave the twin there because it's actually more easy to tame volume-wise.
Yeah, so wait, you have a Blues Junior 4? Is that accurate? Is that what you bought?
That's a tweed. So they call it the lacquered. It's actually so there's the 4, the lacquered, and the something else.
Yeah, but I thought the lacquered was the same circuit as the other one. It's just a different look.
That's a good question. I don't know.
Let's figure it out.
I know it's still a 15 watt, and I know it's still all the stuff, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's just a different speaker.
Is it?
Yeah, you get the 12-inch Jensen.
Yep.
And it's but it's basically the same amp as the 4, including you can tell because the panel is black. That panel is because people were bitching they couldn't see the chrome.
Yep.
The chrome panel. So they finally got around to fixing it.
And so what I laugh about with it that I think is funny, the foot switch turns on and off the fat channel.
Yeah, it's not a drive switch. It's basically just a mid boost.
Yeah, it's just a little mid boost.
It's actually probably not even a mid boost. It's probably just natural mids with the fat boost on, and if you turn it off, it's probably a scoop thing.
It definitely scoops. It's very noticeable.
Well, hey Jim, if you like that, at least when your year of no gear's over, you'll be ready for a Mesa, California.
Yeah,
or a Gibson, California.
The Gibson, California is what I'm getting. God damn it. So. Yeah, I got the yep, there's your Gibson hat. I'm wearing my Fender hat today because I've got 2 Fender amps. So I'm trying to make a decision. Do I leave cause now the captor can capture that. So now I can capture a Fender and capture a Marshall. And it doesn't care because it's coming out of a Fender circuit. The captor can emulate any speaker emulation I want.
Well, I don't think that, but I don't think the tweeds sound anything like a 60s style Fender.
No, it's not going to be a 60s style thing. No.
Like the twin reverb is not nearly the same thing. All right, this is really bothering me.
Yes,
it's not that it's bothering me because I'm wearing it. It's bothering me because it's my headphones. It's like That whole episode we went through and I wore that. Like, it was really hard to wear with headphones on. And I have a weird shaped head too, so that's part of the problem.
Really? I struggle with hats because I have a small head, and so I have to like pull the hat like really tight in the back. So there's certain types of hats I'll wear. Like I have this guitar zoom hat right here. I can't wear this trucker style because look, I can never get them small enough where they actually fit. This is actually too big. Look, I could put this over top of the thing.
Yeah.
That's for a guy with a 8-inch head or a woman with an 8-inch, a size 8, whatever you call it. I have like a 7.25 head.
I don't hate. Yeah, I don't hate the Blues Junior.
Yeah.
I do think the stock speaker that they usually put in is kind of crap.
Yeah.
Even the Jensen that's probably in yours is probably not great because they're cheap amps. I mean, it's $500 for one.
Well, they're up to 600 now. But yeah.
Yeah, I know. I
didn't pay that.
And it just kills me. It's like, oh, they're up to 600 now, and you're like, what changed?
Nothing.
Because there's nothing in them. There's like nothing on the board in those things. No. The Pro Junior gets used a lot now, and like it gets used on pro stages, which is hilarious to me. Because these like all of the junior line, or like the blues line or whatever, the Hot Rod Deluxe line, basically everything that includes like all that family of products are sort of notorious for breaking down. So it's like, okay, I guess that makes sense, but I don't know, $600 for that seems really steep.
I did not pay. I wouldn't have paid.
I can remember when you could get a Blues Junior used for $250, man.
Oh, I know. I remember when you could. That's the thing that kills me. Is
they're not even. That wasn't even that long ago.
I went online, so I wanted to get one used. I was like, all right, I'm just going to get something used, and I went online. And I went to Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and everything else because Reverb, everybody wanted $50 to ship. I'm like, I'm over new price by now. So everything I looked at. So locally, I found a katana that somebody was willing to trade for my Spark. And I was like, well, that would put me out no money. But the katana is not going to have the resale value, not a 50-watt katana. It's not going to have the resale value of the Spark. Spark is still very popular. And so I'm like, I could probably sell that Spark still for probably $220, where the 50-watt katana's got about $150 resale value right now to $180. And
I haven't looked at them, but I know I got more than that on my head.
Well, the head is the 100. Remember, you got a 100-watt head. Would you get three for it?
I got 325, I think.
Yeah, that's about right. And so then I thought, okay, well, what else can I do? And there was like a couple of Mustang 3, Mustang 4, no good used. There's nothing good on the used market. There was no good used tube amps in this area. None.
That's not a surprise. Not for inexpensive, like
not in a store, not on Reverb, not on Craigslist, nothing. And I said to myself, I could try to push a 40-watt amplifier hard enough to get over top of that stuff, or I can just get something cheap and throw it in there and just say, okay, that's what I got to do. So that's what I did. So yeah, and don't get me wrong, because in all reality, what I really want right now is a fuzz pedal. And it's because, okay, so the Electro Harmonics one that you gave me a couple years ago, that broke.
Yeah. Oh, really?
The switch isn't always switching. Doesn't stay on.
Oh, that's easy fix.
It's probably some switch contact cleaner.
Probably, and even if it's not, like the swapping out a switch on one of those guys is easy.
Yeah, that's what somebody told me. So I can get it fixed. So or fix it, I mean. So that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm going to try contact cleaner on it first, some deoxit, and then if not, I'm gonna fix the switch.
You could even send it like their guy, like Wampler will fix pedals and stuff like that.
Oh, that's true.
There's also Alchemy Audio here in Chicago that does a lot of repair.
But that the thing I was looking at was that JHS Supreme, called Supreme, and it says Japan on it. That seemed to be the one that every single video I saw, when they put it with a humbucker, sounded good.
Yeah, it's based on a Univox Super Fuzz.
Is that what it is? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that good?
And actually, you want to look for something that's like Tone Bender or Super Fuzz-ish, because the Super Fuzz is similar to the Tone Bender.
That was the other thing I looked at, was the Bender by who the heck is it? Keeley. Keeley has a Bender, and what do you call it as a Bender? JHS has a Bender.
JHS has one as well. And actually, you know who else makes a good Tone Bender is Park Sound Fuzz, I think is what it's called, and that's actually made by Supro and Pignose or whatever, or not Pignose, Pigtronics, and that's supposed to be really good too. Ooh. It's the Park Fuzz Sound vintage germanium fuzz, and that makes some really good humbucker sounds, in my opinion. You want to look at that, yeah.
Fuzz.
I guess that's actually made by Earthquaker. I don't know why I was thinking it was Pigtronics.
Earthquaker, there it is.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're making them with the Park name, which is kind of defunct at this point. But they're pretty cool. Like I've heard a couple of clips of them with humbuckers that sound really good. So if you're looking for something that's really humbucker specific, yeah. And then of course you could look at a Vemoram Fuzz, the Josh Smith Vemoram Fuzz. It's only $4.99, I think.
Yeah. Well, these are in the same price range. The cheap one is the Keeley at $150. The Park and the JHS are both at $179. So that's not too bad.
Yeah, I mean, I consider those the same price. Honestly, for $20, like you pick the one you want.
That's what I'm saying. It's not it. That's what I said. They're in the same price range. They're in the same ballpark.
So while we're talking about fuzz for a minute, can we talk about the Bliss Factory? Are you familiar? All right. So Chase Bliss.
Uh-huh.
Are you familiar with Chase Bliss?
Oh yeah.
So Chase Bliss has done a collaboration. It's been around. Like, this is not a new pedal. They did a collaboration with ZVEX, because he actually used to work for ZVEX. And
holy shit!
I just looked
at the price.
Yeah. Oh, well, we're getting there. So they put the Fuzz Factory inside of basically the Chase Bliss digital, the Chase Bliss's digital control infrastructure, and they added their Condor filter on it. And basically, it's fully programmable, MIDI programmable Fuzz Factory, right?
Yep.
And all the quirkiness of the Fuzz Factory. And the sounds I'm hearing people make with this thing are really, really cool. But I'm also sitting there, like, somebody sent me a clip the other day. I think it was Mike Mira. He sent me a clip the other day. And he's like, man, look at this thing. And I was like, yeah, man, it's super cool, but it's not $400 cool.
It's $589.
Because they're only doing it in limited runs. So if you want it in between one of the runs, you're going to pay. And they've only done 2 runs. And apparently, like, Joel and Zachary Vex are going back and forth with one another about how many of these they're actually going to make full time, and whether it's going to become a full line pedal. And I was kind of laughing because I'm like, you could spend $400 on this, or you could spend $400 on a Vemoram, the Vemoram Fuzz. And I honestly think the Vemoram Fuzz, as far as premium, really expensive fuzzes go, is probably better than this. Because it's more, I'm trying to think of the right words. It's like more usable. Like, the Fuzz Factory excels at being a noisemaker. If you want something that can just obliterate your signal and do all kinds of weird shit, that's what you buy a fuzz factory for. You don't buy a fuzz factory to play like Jimi Hendrix rhythm or to play Pumpkins tunes. And I know people that use it that way. I mean, the guy from the hell's the name of that band? The band that did Great Western Valkyrie. Somebody in the group knows. That band, their guitar player, he plays the offset freaking Gibson, Firebird. Rival Sons. He plays a Firebird through a fuzz factory, right? And that's like a big component of that band's sound. But I kind of like, I'm just like, man, fuzz factories are already expensive enough as it is. Where he actually made the Vexter series just to make the fuzz factory affordable. And which is stupid because if you've ever opened up a fuzz factory, you know there's like 9 components in there. You're paying basically to have like 6 knobs on it. I mean, that's basically what it is.
Well, this is your typical Chase Bliss with too many knobs and too many options. There's like 14 dip switches on this thing.
Yeah, they're all like that. You could get lost in them for sure. I don't have my board sitting in front of me, or I'd show you my warp vinyl.
There's 1, 2. Let me see.
Which my warp vinyl is going up in value slowly because it's out of production.
There's 16. I thought I was being hyperbolic with 14. There's 16 dip switches.
Yeah, and once you understand how they work, it's really simple. But
six switch knobs. And then your 3 position toggle switches, and then you've got another toggle switch and then the 2 on it.
And you can have 2 presets, or MIDI, 256 presets.
Yes, and I understand that, but unless you're using MIDI in this thing, you're not going to get your money's worth out of it. To me,
I don't. So like I have the warp vinyl. I'm not MIDI. I don't have any MIDI control over that, and I feel like I'm getting my money out of it. But that said, I use it. So like here's the unorthodox part of it. I'm using it as a fucking tremolo,
right?
In addition to a chorus, and I'm also using it for. You heard my rotating speaker sound effect on my one song.
The Leslie thing.
Yeah, it sounds great.
But live, you can't switch more than how many positions before you have to have a MIDI? 3?
2 presets.
2.
And you could do 2 presets in live, basically.
And now,
so
if you're not
knobs twisted,
right?
So it's like 3 settings.
Yeah, I was going to say if you weren't using the other, like during a song, you could use 2, and then you could between songs reach down and switch it. You wouldn't be the first person in the world to reach down and switch something on his pedal board.
Yeah, and there are also there's a favorite switch you can use as well, so you can get access to some of the presets with one of your favorites.
That's something that what you call it uses too. That little favorite switch that they have.
The Strymon has their version of it, right?
And so
I'm not a big fan of them. I mean, honestly, I'm not a big. I like Chase Bliss. The sounds that are in those pedals. If they were $200 with 3 knobs or 4 knobs, like hell yes, because they sound freaking fantastic. But you don't buy them for that. Like you buy them for the 20 dip switches and the MIDI switching and all that kind of stuff. So for me, like if I'm going to spend $400 on a pedal, I don't actually need all that crap. What I need is a pedal that just sounds freaking phenomenal and is like idiot proof. This and I'm going to hold this up because this is my white whale, right? This is too many knobs.
Right.
That is too many knobs. And I mean, it like too many knobs. There's switches on the side. There are switches on the back.
See,
you got to learn how to use all that crap. And it's not idiot proof. Like you go on a stage with this and you don't know what the hell you're doing, you're going to be in trouble.
But that's a pedal that you use that you love. I mean, you got it.
Yeah, I bought it twice. the same serial number twice.
Yeah, you got the exact, not just the same pedal, the same pedal. I want to stress the word the same.
Yeah, pedal. I hunted the guy down and told him I'll pay him, and I basically paid the new price for it used.
Yeah, I look at this 1972 Japan Supreme that you said is based on what? The
Super Fuzz, the box Super Fuzz.
Super Fuzz. And I go, and I heard several different things to it, and I went, "That's the fuzz that I want to get."
Yeah, just be careful, because I've definitely bought fuzzes off clips and then got them and been like, that sounds like nothing like my. But
here's my dangerous part, and this is where I literally want to write Josh an email and go, "Dear Josh, if I buy this pedal and I put it in my chain, where should I put it? Because does it go in front of my dark side? If it goes in front of my dark side, does it go in front of my wah pedal? I mean, in other words, does it matter, or will it,
with that pedal, I can tell you right now it's going to matter.
Yeah. And that's
the only pedal I found that plays nice anywhere in the chain, depending on what you want to do with it, is, and I'm just talking about like I'm not talking about in terms of sound quality. I'm talking about in terms of noise and squealing and harmonic craziness that's not supposed to go on.
Right.
The only fuzz pedal I found that consistently doesn't just act like an animal is the muffline stuff. Because they're three, they have 3 transistors in them. When you have a 3 transistor fuzz, and they're also more akin to a distortion anyway, they play nice. You can put a wah before them, or you can put a wah after them. So just be aware of that. There are options for that, for dealing with that though. Like number one is put the damn fuzz at the front of the chain,
right.
Which I'm not a fan of. You know this. Or you start seeking out the pedals that play nice with fuzz, and you go the other direction, which is the way I went.
What about, I got a dark side, right?
Mm-hmm.
So does the dark side care where it is? Because maybe that's why I don't, I'm starting to lose a little bit of faith in the dark side, because I'm putting the dark side. Okay. So right now, the way my pedal board goes is like this: guitar into my wah into my TU.
Whatever, your tuner.
No, the tuner is not in the way.
Your tuner's at the end of the board, right? It's a mute switch.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that.
The tuner, it's before the compressor, but at the end of the board. The compressor is the last thing on the board.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you some sage advice that somebody should have given me before I started to form preferences that basically formed my buying habits. If you can get away with using your fuzz in front of your wah, because that's really the most devastating, in my mind, that's the most devastating change, then I would highly recommend you explore that and see if that works for you. And then you can start making decisions about, okay, so if that's not going to work for you, the other pedals are going to be a bigger problem. Now, That said, the dark side has fuzz in it, right? I mean, it has like a muff. It has a muff circuit in it, right?
Yeah, that's the first thing that you have on the right side is a fuzz, because you have a fuzz and either a Leslie delay or whatever. I use the Leslie.
Do you not like it into the effects that come after it? Is that? Is that?
No, it's all right. So here's my biggest problem, and it's not something that I think another fuzz would fix. Okay, the biggest problem I have is I have a Strat and I have a Les Paul, or I have an SG. Those two do not combine pedals well at all. It's almost like you need a separate board.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and I don't want to do that.
I've talked about doing this.
We've talked about that. That's exactly right. And I've thought about it where I have one board for the Strat, I have one board for the Les Paul and the SG and such. So
with the amount of pedals, Jim, with the amount of pedals you have,
yep,
being the good neighbor,
yep.
I kind of think like breaking your stuff up is not that big a deal.
Yeah.
You have just pick the shit you really want to use for one and pick the shit you really want to use for another. Put them on 2 separate boards.
Or have the gig board where I have one line is the one guitar and the other line is the other guitar. You know what I mean? Where the
Yeah, you
top
could do
row, right?
How many? You only have one wah pedal though, so you can only use a wah with one guitar, and that's going to be an issue.
I have 2 wah pedals, but I
you have
would have to probably. I don't know if I'd want a mini to be a main wah for the other guitar. And that would be where, I mean, I could probably, as little as I use the wah for certain stuff, I could probably just say, okay, you know what? This guitar gets the wah pedal, this one doesn't get one. And just go like that. Like, okay, the Strat gets a wah pedal and the Les Paul doesn't, or the other way around.
So what's your issue with fuzz in the Les Paul? So like, because I know you can probably tweak the knobs and get it kind of close to where you want it to go.
Yep. But once you get it tweaked in, and this is true for my fuzz, for the 5050, for the 805, for the Paisley overdrive. Once I tweak them in and I get them where I really like them for, let's say I tweak them in for the SG right here. I get them nice and, that's where I want them. Then I take out the Strat. It's super weak. It's like, And
it doesn't have enough. The Strat doesn't have enough output.
Yep. And so then I'm compressing it. I'll push the compressor, which is fine. But then the compressor boosting the signal is okay. But the problem is the fuzz doesn't fuzz the way I want it. And the
compressor also, I can tell you right now, the compressor is also modifying your signal.
That's right. I know that.
So what I actually would suggest you do, and you're gonna think I'm crazy when I first say it, because I know you like to use boosts in the loop, is get yourself an EP booster, put it on the front of your board in front of everything else, and only turn it on when you plug your Strat in. Have it set for the 3 dB boost that this provides out of the box, and it'll actually make your Strat sound better anyway, but it's not going to compress it at all. And that pedal, because it's basically the preamp out of an Echoplex, it's not going to screw up your it shouldn't screw up the input of your fuzz. I've used them in that capacity to boost fuzz pedals before, and they seem pretty neutral. If anything, they might add something.
Could I put the Spark boost?
You could try the Spark. You could try the Spark. If you do that, I would set it as neutral as possible, because you have the Spark Mini, right? Or do you have the full size? Does the Mini have dip switches for like treble boost and all that on it? No, I thought it had like you could tailor it inside or something.
It's the big one does.
Okay,
the Mini doesn't.
All right, yeah.
Not that I know of.
I would try that and see how it plays with your fuzz pedals, and I would start there, because that's going to be your biggest problem, is you're dealing with the volume differences. The next problem you're going to have is mid-range differences, and that you're going to have to learn to like adjust. But the volume problem is a huge issue, because like I've had that before too, where my pickups just don't have enough output when going from one guitar to the other. The other component of that is like you probably have really high output Les Paul pickups, and you could consider going to something that's lower output, but that's going to cost you more money than getting a boost pedal.
Yeah. Or just splitting the board. I mean, I have enough dirt and analog, and I have 2 carbon copies. I have.
Yeah, I mean, you have like 2 complete boards. They're all just on one board.
Oh yeah, I have 2. I have another board. I mean, yeah. I have the carbon copy. I have the carbon copy deluxe. I have the caverns. I have
or the other solution here is pick a guitar and stick with it when you're gigging, and just use the other one at home.
Yeah, and that's the other side of it. I could do it that way, and because I've gotten to where I like fuzz now, and I want fuzz.
It's so funny because like you're the only Gibson guy I've ever known that's like, I like fuzz. But so it's funny because like you've got a 335 back there and you've got a Les Paul, and it's like there's a lot of overlap between those guys. They're not the same sound, but there's a lot of overlap between those guitars. I could see those two going to a gig together. Same thing with the SG. Yeah. But as far as like your Strat, that's like the odd one out for you.
It is.
So you're always going to fight that thing in terms of pedal board type stuff. So if you have specific pedals that you prefer to use with the Strat, but you don't really use them with the Les Paul, I would put them on the Strat board. And I would not try to separate out and have like 2 rows. I would just say these are all the Les Paul pedals. These are all the Strat pedals. And because you only have one Strat, that gets the mini wah.
Yep.
And I think you're probably going to find out that the Strat probably prefers the dark side.
Yeah.
And I think that there's probably some other pedals that you have, like the 808 probably sounds better with the Strat.
Yep, it does.
Or the Paisley, or I mean, it might be the Paisley, whichever one wins out.
The Paisley drive definitely loves the Strat. So
here's the weird part. When I did my board rebuild a couple of years ago, and I was like, after I'd gotten done with the Helix, and I bought the Kemper and I started to build out the little bitty board. I thought to myself, like, well, how do I want to build this thing? Because I don't want to get into the same mess that I got into before, where I had no less than 4 dirt pedals. I take it back. I had 4 overdrives, and I had 2 fuzzes. And at one point, I had 3 fuzzes on the same board. So I had 7 drive pedals, like 7 dirt pedals, right? And so I'm like thinking to myself, when I got into this situation, how do I build a board around this need? And I thought to myself, gee, what do I actually need? And I thought to myself, like, I'll just write it down. And I got out a notebook, and I actually saw the page the other day. And I basically said, like, I need a mid-boosted, like mildly mid-boosted overdrive sound. I need,
I'm trying to get. I don't know why this thing did what it did. Keep going.
Yeah, it's just flipping.
I was going to have you like look at it and go, okay, this is what I would do.
So I basically just came up with the archetype sounds, right, that I use. I use like a mildly boosted, pretty driven sound, right? So that's my main tone. When you listen to my live stream, that's what you're going to hear most of the time. I have basically that sound clean, so no overdrive pedal on. And then I have a fuzz. And then I have, occasionally you'll hear me use the fuzz and the drive, but that's like a new thing. That's a relatively new occurrence because I want to bring out the mids on the fuzz. So if I run them together, then it brings up the mids. And then like literally everything else on my board was like, okay, so what modulation do I like? And I got the Univibe. That was the first thought. It was like, I'm going to get a unicorn.
Yep.
And then I had, I needed a wah. So I got the Real McCoy, recently.
Love that.
Which I was freaking waiting for that thing for, like, I was thinking about getting one for almost a year before I bought one.
Yep.
And then I got I bought the Phase 90, and that was totally kind of an impulse purchase where I was like, you know what? I had a Phase 90 script logo before, and I was like, I do want to get something EVH just like to have on my board for no real good reason.
Yep.
And I was like, I wouldn't mind having another Phase 90. I kind of miss them. And actually, it's a mainstay on my board now. It's not going anywhere. But like everything else, like dude, I don't even have a delay pedal. Like I just use reverb. What the hell do I need a delay for? And I know people are like, oh, well, when you play out, it gets muddy. It depends. I mean, honestly, like I've had it go both ways. I've had delay pedals sound muddy as shit. Just depends on the venue.
Yeah.
And who's mixing you.
Oh, yeah.
But I just keep it simple, like don't try to do the thing where you have like 9 drives or like, you're like, oh, I need this sound. And it's like, no, you really just need a drive sound and you need like a moderately dirty sound that you can clean up if you roll the volume knob back. And you probably need a fuzz, maybe 1 type or 2 types of modulation and your delay and reverb and a boost if you don't have one on your amp.
So this is what's on the board now.
Yeah.
All right. So it goes from here into here, goes across this. Okay. Then it goes into the tuner and then down to this and then across these. And so this, because this would go into the loop, the tuner would go into the loop, and then that would be my way to mute the whole thing or bring it back, right? And then this is at the end of the chain, and that's a boost, all right? So the point that I'm trying to make here is, and you've used the 50-50, so you know, All right.
Right.
So,
I would pair that with humbuckers.
Yeah. And so the 50-50 works great with the humbuckers. The 805 sits right in the middle. It actually can warm things up quite a bit.
It's a tube screamer circuit, so it's going to have a hefty mid hump in there.
Yep. These guys like the Strat. And so that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking if I want to put, I can move these and then make like a Strat line and then make a, what do you call it, line? And then at the end,
I think that's like way too much signal hijink, though. I don't think I necessarily want to put it all on one board.
No,
I just think it's too much crap to carry around. Are you ever going to be going to gigs with both your Strat and your Les Paul?
Maybe not.
I mean, the same gig like that. That's why I said like then you're just carrying extra crap.
Well, the truth is, if I wind up going to a single guitar, it would have to be the Les Paul or the SG because the secondary guitar they're going to be paired up every time. Because the backup for that one is going to be the one that I can play the most because the Strat I've only got one.
Yeah.
You know?
At least for the time being, maybe you find something else.
Yeah, I've
at some point, but
2 right now, but that won't last forever. And so I've got to look at, will I eventually get a Telecaster or get a second Strat? Probably a second Strat.
Probably at some point. I mean, but like that's why I wouldn't necessarily put a ton of emphasis on
and so just
the
stick
Strat
with
side of things.
Yeah, stick with the SG and the Les Paul and go from there.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk about it. You can send me your signal chain, and I can help you kind of organize that. Because I'll be honest with you, like for me, I probably would take the 805 and pair that with the Strat. Yeah, and there's a reason for it because if you're doing the mid boosted thing into a Fender amp, like that's kind of the sound of Stevie Ray Vaughan and all those guys, and really pretty much everybody who plays Strats nowadays use some sort of mid boost.
And then I've got another board.
Yeah,
and so I could do a Strat board, and have that.
Well, it just seems hilarious to have like 2 boards, and because I've been there, like but I've totally been there where like my Kiesel plugged into my existing board, it just like other than the modulation pedals, it doesn't sound good.
Right. And it's not because it's a bad guitar, not by a long shot.
No, but I did reveal to somebody this week that I may sell it.
Yeah.
Just because like as good as a guitar as it is, and it is freaking great. It's so well made. Compared to some of the Kiesel disasters I've seen online. It's really well made. It's a 7-string, but that's probably also its biggest detractor because it's really hard for me to go from that guitar to any of my other guitars, and unless I'm doing it daily. And I've had that Kiesel in the case for like months. I took it out during the live stream a couple days ago, and I played a song. I played one of my songs with it, and I was like, "Geez, lightning fast action! Like it plays so good." But I'm like, man, it ain't my Strat,
right?
And as after I played, I was like, it ain't my Strat, and I'm like, I'd rather have a Strat.
Yep.
Have another really good Stratocaster style guitar,
and not necessarily a Strat, but a S style guitar, and that's what I'm thinking. I would probably, and you know what? I hate to admit this, but I've seen some of these new Quartz. I definitely want to go check one out, because if I get a second S style guitar, look at what they're doing with the Quartz right now. Oh my God, they're doing some great things, and for killer money right now, considering what they're putting in them.
I'm also I'm going to sell my GNL Legacy Tribute.
Are you? Really?
Yeah. That's the Legacy Tribute.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Not my S500.
Yeah.
That thing's.
I knew I knew you didn't say S500.
That thing's not going anywhere. And I'm kind of like cleaning house. I'm going to collect some money on it. I don't know if I'm going to sell the Kiesel yet. I may not. I had to wait for that guitar. Like it was built for me, and I'm kind of like, eh.
I'm thinking about asking my son to let me keep the MIM. Just keep it.
Yeah. if I sell my Kiesel, that's about $1,400.
Yep.
I could theoretically try to parlay my way into like a Tom Anderson or something used.
Yep.
Or build a Warmoth, like basically free and clear.
Yep.
The question is, do I want to go that way, or do I want to go something that's I can actually resell if shit gets ugly? Which I've been in that frame of mind. Like we've talked about this on the show before, where I'm kind of like, oh yeah, I'm never going to sell gear to try to make up builds or anything like that. But I've done it. I've done it while the show's been running, and honestly, it's not as big a deal as people make it out to be, or that you would think it is if you've never had to do it. Because like I still have my good stuff. I'm not. There's things I won't part with, but like honestly, there's not a whole lot of it.
Yep.
I mean, there's 2 guitars and an amp, and that's pretty much it.
Yep.
But I will say this: if I sell the Kiesel, I've already offered it to somebody first dibs because they really like the guitar anyway, and I know it's sort of up their alley for the things they like. Yep. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, you deserve it probably more than anybody else. So there's that, but yeah, I have to decide whether I'm gonna get my money out of it or not, or whether I'm gonna keep it around. Maybe I keep it. I got lots of photographs of me playing that guitar in the open mics and stuff. And that's another thing too. You never realize how annoying it is to have like a headless or some weird style guitar. Everybody comes up and talks to you. It's like, God damn it! Can't I just take my shit off stage without you having like come up here and yap my ear off? And they're always drunk. That's the first thing. How did it get broken? It got broken in the parking lot when I beat your ass with it. Like
they think they're hilarious. It's always something. So for next week, I want to talk about something that I found irritating as heck. Watching a lot of these demo videos over the week for different things. I'm going to give a teaser to it, but I want to talk about it next week because we're almost at 2 hours right now.
Yeah.
Stop using guitars nobody else has. I mean, you and your effing hipster friends have them. Your YouTube channel friends have them. But guess what? Nobody buys them.
Nobody does.
And so, guess what?
Nor do they want them. Nor do they want them.
That does not represent that pedal to me. That does not represent that amplifier to me. And I think
I know exactly who we're talking about. And I'm like, I totally understand because that guitar is so freaking weird. Who wants that?
Yeah.
Who wants that guitar?
Yeah. And I'd love to get him on the channel and just say, all right.
I would too, but he's not coming on here.
He doesn't need to come on here. I'd love to have him on because I think he's a really,
he's a nice guy. You'll get to meet him at Gear Fest, I'm sure.
I hope so. I sit down and I go, why are you playing that fucking guitar? Play something I would know what it sounds like. So yeah, we'll reveal who that person is next week because we know we're talking about the same person. Because you said he was a nice guy, and I was like, "Oh, please don't tell me you're talking about Mr. Shill."
No. Actually, and that's another thing. Before we take this out, I gotta set the record straight on Rhett Shill. Yeah. I was having a conversation with somebody outside the show who's a fan of the show, and they were like, and I won't reveal their name because I don't want to push any buttons, but they were kind of like, "You really don't like him, like you really hate him." And I was like, I don't hate him. I was like, I actually don't hate him.
I don't know him. I can't hate somebody I don't know. I can't like somebody I don't know, but I can't hate somebody.
But my whole thing was like, because I'm calling him Rhett Shill and all these different things. Listen, it's all in good fun. Right. If Rhett wants to come on the show, he's more than welcome to. I'm not gonna like go and pull a Jared Dines and try to reach out to him and make him go through the mud and do all like that's not me. I actually I don't watch Rhett's videos anymore. I did unfollow him. That's like legit. I wasn't joking around on the show, but it was more because I got tired of like the the melodrama of how he shoots his videos, and like the fact that it's all hyper real.
Yeah, hyperbolic.
Well, I say hyper real in the sense that, and it's kind of like that's a critical theory term, so I should probably explain it. Hyper real in the sense that, like, it's reality amplified to the point where it's like almost unreality.
Right.
And in the sense, you know, he did the video where he's talking about his like creative streak breaking, and like it was pointed out, you know, every YouTuber does a video about that at some point. And I'm like, yeah, vloggers all do it. It's absolutely true. They do a video about how do I keep making videos when I'm so burnt out and not creative. My God. And like, I get it. He's doing that, right? And I this person I was having the conversation with also acknowledged, no, it is 2020. I see your point that was a crappy thing to do. But like, you know, it's like, you can't be mad at him for like making a cash grab, and no, absolutely not. But it doesn't mean I have to watch him either.
Right. Right.
So I like the problems I've had with Rhett over the years are more or less just like the way he conducts business. And there have definitely been times where he's getting products that it's not like clearly disclosed that I'm getting a product here, and it may not be from the company. It may be from a dealer. Like that happens too. There are ways of insulating yourselves from that law, which that's part of the influencer thing, right? Is like getting your way around that. But in his situation, like I don't actually see Rhett as much of an influencer so much as just a vlogger. And he's okay. Like, honestly, I'd buy him a beer and I'd sit down and I'd talk to him, and I'd even bring it up. I'd be like, hey, remember when you did that video about your creativity? Like, I actually like laughed because I was looking at it and I was like, dude, you made this video. It's 2020. Like, everybody's screwed right now, and you're concerned about this. Oh, and I would just laugh it off. It's not a big deal.
So I watch a channel called A Dose of Buckley. And he's a comedian. He does this stuff, and he's always like, "Why do you people take me seriously? I am a comedian." I say right out, there is nothing factual about what I say. But he was talking about how all of these celebrities, I'm in the same boat as you. Oh my God! And then they're tripping off to some island, or they're taking off.
They're renting the private jet that sits on a tarmac so they can videotape themselves like they're going somewhere.
So then J-Lo,
like, who does that?
Yeah, and then J-Lo took off her expensive clothing and jewelry on a beach and said, "Let everything go. Let's go back to the bed." Oh, shut up, J-Lo. You could throw out every piece of jewelry you have on right now and still have more money.
Your 4 bodyguards that are standing behind the camera person.
Exactly, and that person's picking it up, digging it out.
Never mind the fact that you have a camera person taking shots of you on the beach because you're a model.
Right. And it's like, and on his thing, I put this on my Facebook page. I just shared it and I said, really, you are not relatable. You don't relate to us, and the whole Imagine thing that Gal Gadot put up. It's like,
yeah.
Just go back to being the little Muppet thing you are on TV, and do what you do. We know you don't know us, and we know you don't like us. I don't care about you. I don't care what you eat for dinner. I don't care how much you crap all week long. And that's the problem with our society. We built these people.
I don't even see Rhett as being.
No. I'm just saying that
removed.
No, I'm just saying that there are so many people who are removed. They forget. It's like the ones that I talk about all the time that hang all these guitars. From. Yeah, and they forget that you're talking to a person who's proud of the fact that they finally just got a Made in America strap.
Yeah.
They finally bought their first Made in America strap. You're like, yeah, well, I've got 16 of them. Let me just show them to you. Don't brag, and don't throw them in your face, because I know you're not trying to brag, but it's just like Gal Gadot singing. I bet you she actually had it in her heart to say something nice. I bet you she was trying to do something nice. But the problem is, while you do this in your mansion, you're not reaching, and nobody cares what you and all your celebrity friends are doing.
Well, I don't even know, like, when like, let's say somebody puts up their 4 American strats in the background or whatever. Like, I don't even know if they're like the whole audience agrees with with your methodology, but the point is that they don't realize that that's not necessarily the norm.
Right.
And they're so aloof to it that they don't even realize that someone may be seeing it that way. It's just, this is how I live. And I forgot that one day, I wasn't a guitar player and I didn't have all this.
Right.
And it's like in Rhett's case, I don't see Rhett as actually overblowing himself to be a celebrity in the same way that I think a lot of people do. Mm-hmm. I think it's just the cinematography of the moment.
Right.
And I don't think he realizes sometimes the way that it comes off.
Right.
And
that's what I'm saying.
I believe me, if you told him, I'm sure you'd be like, yeah, it's kind of silly. It's no big deal. And actually meeting some of these people over the years has kind of opened my eyes to the fact that they don't necessarily perceive themselves in any way different. It's just because it's on YouTube and because those things are true. That's part of the situation. But I did tell the person I was having the conversation with, this is how I actually wanted to leave it, was do I, because part of the conversation was do you think it's okay to be angry with these people? And is that good for your audience? Is it good for the show? And I know people kind of think that's not good for the show, but I want to point something out. Part of our stock and trade here has been being authentic. We don't play authentic. We are authentic. Jim and I may come off as the most abrasive jerks in the world, but at least that's who we are. And honestly, that's probably the same thing for Rhett. Yeah. He may come off as a genuine dude to a lot of folks, and that's who he is. But that's not the way it looks like to me sometimes. And so therefore I called it out like I saw it, because that's my stock and trade. That's my product. If nobody likes my product, then clearly I shouldn't be doing this anymore.
Right. And if you met me, you would meet me. I mean, this person right here, this guy, you'd meet this guy. You would meet this person, no different. I don't put on makeup for the camera. I don't get dressed up. I wear blue jeans and t-shirts, and tonight I'm wearing a sweatshirt because it was warm out today and I was outside. I don't believe in being a fake person for anything. I don't believe in shilling anything. Now that said, we all have to play our politic, whether it's at work or, in our social circles. We all have to do that.
I definitely have a character for the show, but that character reflects a lot of my opinions.
Right.
I wouldn't necessarily express myself in the same way outside the show. There'd probably be a lot more F-bombs, right?
Oh, I'd have a lot more F-bombs. If you met me in person, there'd be a lot more F-bombs, a lot more. Oh my God, I was in full form today during lunch. But, I wanted to leave it like this. Regardless of what we are here, and we're genuine and we're reachable. I think a lot of what happens to any channel is it grows to the point that you can no longer ask your questions.
Yeah.
And it's not their fault. They're trying their best. I don't think Phil McKnight goes, I wonder how many people I can ignore this week. That's not what he does. But a guy that's got 700 people watching his live stream on a week, he cannot even answer every person once, much less all the people that ask him questions. And just like I said before, there's no way he plays all 70 guitars that are hanging behind him either. 25 or 26 guitars that are hanging behind him. So my point is that we are genuine. David, who doesn't even show the guitars that he has, plays all but his Kiesel daily, And
yeah, pretty much. I mean,
I play these guys daily, and so that, with the exception that you can't see it, it's off. Well, yeah, you can. It's right there. This 12 string, and you can see it, but it's kind of off string. But anyway, that thing doesn't get played very often. But
if I can't play it, it doesn't stick around very long,
right?
Because I need money.
Yeah, and the only amp I don't play very often is that Spark. And the thing is that there's a certain amount of a reality that comes through that. I think this is the room. If you were working with me and you Skyped with me during work, this is the room you'd see.
Mm-hmm.
If you came over to my house and sat down and was going to watch,
don't.
Yeah, don't. And was going to sit and watch a movie with me or whatever, this is the room you'd see. And this is where I am. This isn't just my, I come up here when I want to hang out. I'm almost always
your studio space where you just, this is the only place where you make
the dog.
You're not a content creator. You don't go in here to create content, Jim.
Right.
Just like turn on the camera. Well, that's what I think the audience may not understand is that, like, a lot of the show is just flip the camera on and we go. It's not like we do prepare, but it's like, here's the topics we're going to talk about. Maybe do a little bit of research before the episode, and then like, okay, away we go. And believe me, there have definitely been times where we like regret saying certain things. Yeah. And I, honestly, I do regret like some of the Rhett show comments, but then I also remember some of the things that he said, where it's like, you literally said you wouldn't say that, and then you turned around and you said it. But I don't have any ill will for anybody in the community. Even Jared Dines. Like, Jared basically lied to us in the early days of the show and through his publicist. And I think it was just his publicist was speaking on his behalf without actually talking to him. Yeah. But I just like, that really pissed me off. But I don't like right. Jared, same thing. I would totally like go and like sit down and have a beer with Jared. I don't drink, but I'd have a beer with Jared and like shoot the shit. I mean, it's no big deal. There are very few people in this industry that have peed on us to the point where I won't even talk to them.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, Jared wrote. That's right. Jared's publicist. When you're so big, you have a publicist. You're no longer talking to the person. There's nothing genuine about it anymore.
The funny part is his contemporaries, other YouTubers that are as big as he is, don't have publicists.
No.
I think there was something that happened business-wise that required him to get legal counsel. And I think when that happened, he got the publicist and legal counsel as part of his deal. He's done interviews about it. I remember he was on Amps and Axes right towards the end of the show, and he talked about having a publicist and like how that worked out, like what that situation was like. And if I recall, there was it wasn't just the publicist. There was more to it than that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And he was actually encouraging other YouTube creators, specifically in the music community, to consider getting representation and stuff.
Yeah, there's the only other channel that I know that's big, and it even dwarfs Dines, is Davey 504, who's a bass player.
Yeah.
And Davey 504 has 9 million subscribers.
Yeah, he's one of the biggest.
Yeah, he's one of the
YouTube music
the big channels.
Yeah.
And he pulled a prank on his channel that I thought was pretty interesting. He dressed in female clothing for a couple of months, and then he said, "I'm going to reveal who this bass player is." Did all his bass playing, and had everybody like saying stuff negative and everything. He goes, "Guess what? That was me the whole time." And then he showed it, and it was like his girlfriend was in on it and everything. And he was like, "Yeah, see that? You guys are weirdos. The things you say." You guys deserve all the crap you get.
And as great as he is as a bass player, because he's really, really good at bass. Yeah. He's a content creator first and foremost. If you watch his stuff, like there's a reason why he's got 9 million subscribers, because he has an appeal outside of music that's very broad.
Yes.
Whereas Jared is. I feel like Jared's like really appealing to guitar players specifically.
Yeah, metal guitar players.
Despite the fact that he's actually a drummer.
Yeah, that's weird. Huh?
He's primarily a drummer.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway,
we're over. We're over 2 hours. Thanks for hanging around. I've been Jim.
I've been David.
This has been The Practical Guitarist. Let's cue the music.